So imagine waking up tomorrow morning, you roll over, grab your phone, and right there on your feed is a flawless, perfectly authentic video of yourself.
Doing something you haven't even thought of yet.
Right. You watch yourself meticulously carry out this horrific crime, something that just violates every single core principle you have.
Yeah, it's a terrifying scenario.
It really is. And that terrifying reality is exactly what we are unpacking in today's deep dive. We have this staggering, honestly terrifying stack of files in front of us today. They're known as the Confessions of Veritas
The
Dynamics.
Veritas file.
And our mission for you today is to really try to understand how these impossible digital artifacts bypass literally every known forensic law.
Hmm.
And in the process, how they kind of just shattered our entire understanding of cause and effect.
Because, we aren't just talking about generative AI mimicking reality here. We live in a world where you and I are constantly obsessed with, like, distinguishing real data from synthetic data, right?
Oh, absolutely.
But this source material introduces this chilling third option. These files represent artificial media that doesn't just mimic reality. It dictates reality.
Hold on, let's make sure we frame just how disruptive that is, right?
Mm.
Because when a piece of digital media surfaces today, we treat it like an engineering problem. You run it through the software, the algorithm looks for the jagged edges, the synthetic artifacts, and you get a binary answer, real or fake.
Exactly, the diagnostic machinery.
But the Veritas Dynamics files broke that fundamental machinery. So to understand how they broke the world, we really have to look at the inciting incident. That first crack in the system, which the intelligence agencies dubbed the Mercer anomaly.
Yeah, the video that essentially initiated a global crisis in data science.
Right. So the drop happens at exactly 2:07 a.m., just a 43-second video showing Senator Daniel Mercer. And he's just sitting in this dim, yellow-lit hotel room.
No podium, no press around him.
None of that. He just stares directly into the lens and, like, super calmly confesses to poisoning a businessman named Richard Vail at a Chicago fundraiser.
Mm.
And he adds this incredibly granular detail, stating it took exactly 11 minutes for Vail to stop breathing.
And see, the specificity of that 11-minute window is what immediately flagged it for forensic review. Because when an anomalous video involving a sitting senator hits the network, the intelligence community descends on it with every single diagnostic tool available.
Biobet.
They fully expected to just categorize it as a sophisticated deepfake within the hour.
But they couldn't. Let's dig into the actual forensics here. Normally, an analyst is looking for, spatial or temporal artifacts. Or they're checking to see if the subject's pulse rate, which they measure through microscopic pixel color variations in the forehead, matches their physical state.
Precisely. Usually forensic algorithms look for those temporal inconsistencies. They run Fourier transforms to see if the frequency domain compression of the face actually matches the background.
Right.
But with the Mercer video, the Fourier transforms were flawless. The pixel entropy was utterly indistinguishable from a raw, uncompressed camera file.
Wow.
Yeah, the eye reflections reacted perfectly to the ambient yellow light of the room. There were zero rendering inconsistencies. According to literally every piece of diagnostic software on Earth, this recording was 100% authentic.
But the physical reality contradicted the digital reality. Because by noon, Senator Mercer is on national television, vehemently denying the video. And Richard Vail, the supposed victim, is alive and completely unharmed.
Right, he's totally fine.
So naturally, the public just writes it off as a viral hoax. A technically impossible hoax, but a hoax nonetheless, until exactly 3 days later.
This is where it gets crazy.
Richard Vail attends a fundraiser in Chicago. He is poisoned, and he dies.
And the toxicology reports later confirm the biological timeline. The poison took exactly 11 minutes to kill him, down to the second.
Which completely vaporizes the idea that this was just some, predictive behavioral model. It's a weather forecast that doesn't just predict a hurricane, but the act of broadcasting the forecast actually manifests the storm.
That's a great way to put it.
So how does a digital recording possess that level of granular precision about an event that physically hasn't happened yet? Let's unpack this.
Well, that paradox is what paralyzed the federal agencies. From a data science perspective, it shifted the narrative from a political assassination to a temporal impossibility. The panic wasn't even about the murder anymore. It was about the data architecture.
Right.
The recording didn't guess right. It contained perfect, verified data of a future crime.
Which is just wild to think about. And because the federal agencies were paralyzed by the sheer impossibility of the data itself, They completely ignored the physical origin of the files.
Yeah, a massive institutional blind spot.
Exactly. And that blind spot left the door wide open for someone outside the system to pick up the trail. Which brings us directly to an investigative cybercrime journalist named Lena Ortiz and the terrifying escalation of what was called the NXT file.
Yeah, Lena was perfect for this. She had spent a decade tracking cybercrime syndicates. She was uniquely positioned to look at the network pathways without the institutional paralysis of a government agency.
Right. She wasn't bogged down by bureaucracy.
Yeah.
So Lena receives an anonymous email with a single attachment, simply labeled NXT. She opens it to find Judge Helen Marrow, this untouchable, highly respected figure, sitting in a dark office, casually drinking whiskey.
Just completely unfazed.
Yeah. And Marrow confesses to bombing a subway station, claiming it will leave 42 dead and hundreds injured on October 17th. And that is 5 days in the future from when Lena actually opens the file. And Mary gives this chilling motive. She says, "I always wanted history to remember me."
It's so unsettling. And Lena does what any responsible investigator would do, right? She alerts the authorities, they shut down the station, bomb squads sweep the entire subterranean network, and they find absolutely nothing.
Nothing at all.
Judge Marrow is furious and publicly demands a federal investigation into the fabrication of the video.
But Lena doesn't stop at the network layer. She actually does a frame-by-frame analysis of the footage and spots something incredible in the reflection of Marrow's whiskey glass. Lena realizes she shouldn't just be analyzing the subject, she needs to analyze the environment.
It was a brilliant pivot, because in the distortion of the glass, Lena observes the background of the office. The furniture is coated in dust, the drywall is stained and peeling.
Wow.
Yeah. The reflection portrays a derelict, abandoned version of Marrow's current office. It looks as though the recording was physically made years later.
And then October 17th arrives. At 8:42 a.m., the subway station explodes. 42 people die. Hundreds are injured. And Judge Marrow, who had vehemently denied the video, vanishes, only to be caught on security footage hours later, calmly walking into the tunnels alone with a duffel bag.
The timeline glitch just becomes a full-blown epidemic at this point. More videos surface rapidly. CEOs detailing corporate assassinations.
Military officers confessing to massacres.
Exactly. They all deny the videos upon release, and then days or weeks later, they commit the exact crimes they confessed to.
Let's talk about Lena's metadata breakthrough here, because this is where my mind absolutely melted. She studies the corrupted data layers in these files and extracts hidden timestamps. But they aren't future dates, they are past dates.
Yes.
The metadata proves these files were technically created after the crimes occurred. In one video featuring a police commissioner, there is a physical calendar on the wall, clearly showing the year 2031.
We really have to look at the data architecture of that corrupted layer. Because how does a file format even allow for a negative timestamp relative to its own creation date without, completely corrupting the header?
Right. How does it not just break?
Well, it doesn't break the file structure because to the file itself, the timestamp isn't negative. It's a native artifact of its own timeline.
I really want to hammer that point home for you, listening. Yeah. If the metadata shows these files were technically created after the crimes, we have completely left the realm of AI prediction. It's like receiving a restaurant receipt for a meal you haven't eaten yet.
Right.
But the receipt is printed on faded yellowed paper from 5 years ago. We are looking at historical records from a timeline that simply hasn't arrived.
What's fascinating here is how the narrative shifts from precognition to documentation. The dust in the reflection, the 2031 calendar, the faded ink on your metaphorical receipt. These are physical artifacts of a timeline that has already solidified.
So how do those files travel backward across a network? Lena tracks the IP trail, navigating these impossible server hops to find a physical anchor in our present timeline. And she locates an abandoned media company just outside Washington called Veritas Dynamics,
which had been officially bankrupt and shuttered since 2022.
Yeah. The upper floors are completely gutted, but deep underground in the basement, she finds a massive archive room with servers actively humming.
She uncovers the physical staging ground of the anomaly, and it is vast. Thousands of hard drives stacked from the floor to the ceiling.
Let's stop and look at how terrifyingly bureaucratic this room is. Every single drive is physically labeled with the name of a politician, a judge, a general, a celebrity, and they're sorted into sections marked completed or pending.
Oh, it's chilling.
It isn't just an archive. It is industrialized reality manipulation. They are treating human fate like a data processing pipeline.
Yeah, it completely reduces the complexities of human choice to a supply chain of inevitability.
And then a single monitor in the center of the room automatically powers on as Lena approaches. And the face on the screen is hers.
Her own face.
It's an older version of Lena, looking exhausted, wearing a blood-stained jacket. The timestamp on the file is November 4th, 2027, so 18 months in her future.
Wow.
Future Lena calmly confesses to shooting a Director Warren in the throat at a press conference. She just stares dead into the camera and states, he deserved worse.
The investigator suddenly transitions into the subject.
Exactly. And future Lena then drops the pivotal twist of this entire phenomena. She leans into the camera, the screen glitches for a microsecond to show ruined, burning cities in the background, and she whispers, you think these videos predict people? They create them.
And there it is. The mechanism of the anomaly is laid bare.
Wait a minute, let's unpack this self-fulfilling infection, because if we are calling this an infection, that assumes the subject still has a choice, but their psychology is just broken by the video. But if the metadata is definitively from the future, doesn't that imply strict determinism? Like, that they actually have zero choice to begin with?
Well, it isn't determinism in the strict physics sense. It is a psychological checkmate.
Yeah, checkmate. Okay.
Yeah, you have to consider the fragility of human cognition. When a person is presented with indisputable, authentic, verified proof of their own future actions, their mind shatters. The sheer psychological weight of that documentation builds a cognitive loop.
Oh, wow.
They fear the act, they actively fight against it, but the seed of inevitability is planted. They subconsciously orchestrate the very steps required to fulfill that destiny because their brain has already accepted it as an established reality. The video doesn't predict their choice. It overwrites their ability to conceive of any other timeline.
That is deeply unsettling. The human mind simply bends toward the confession. So while Lena is reeling from this realization, the monitor in the basement begins rapidly switching files. Thousands of future crimes waiting to happen, playing one after another in this massive dark room.
Just an overwhelming amount of data.
Yeah, and every time one is viewed, the possibility is planted deeper into our present reality. And just as she grasps the scale of this psychological weapon, she realizes she is not alone in the basement.
Right, the architects of the anomaly finally reveal themselves.
This old gray-haired man steps out from the darkness between the server racks. He looks at Lena and says, you finally understand. Lena demands to know how these impossible videos are being manufactured. The old man smiles faintly and replies, they're memories from the survivors.
See, that single word survivors recontextualizes the entire stack of files. It implies that a massive global cataclysm has already occurred in their timeline.
And as the basement lights flicker, Lena sees them. Dozens of silent people standing in the shadows between the shelves. Military personnel, executives in business suits. Some are covered in blood, others are burned, but all of them are staring at her with completely empty, hollow expressions.
Just standing there.
Just staring. And the old man delivers the most haunting statement of the entire investigation. He says, the future is very cooperative once enough people believe it.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that statement is the operating mechanism of Veritas Dynamics. It is essentially a blockchain 51% attack, but applied to human reality.
Oh, that is a fascinating way to look at it. Can you explain that consensus attack?
Sure. So in a blockchain network, reality is dictated by consensus, right? If a malicious actor controls 51% of the network, they can rewrite the ledger of truth. The survivors in this basement are doing exactly that to the timeline.
Ah, I see.
They understand that consensus dictates reality. If this network of survivors can inject enough perfectly verified data into our present, the present timeline is forced to accept it as the truth. They are weaponizing belief to reverse engineer reality. If you control what the collective subconscious believes is inevitable, you control the physical future.
That is just, wow. So thousands of monitors suddenly activate all around Lena, creating a deafening chorus of future confessions. She even hears her own voice screaming among them. She runs. She barely makes it out of the facility. And the very next morning, Veritas Dynamics burns to the ground.
Total incineration.
Total incineration. No bodies are recovered from the basement. No hard drives survive the extreme heat.
A completely sanitized crime scene. The physical evidence is entirely erased, leaving only the digital echoes on the broader network.
Exactly. And what did the official intelligence reports conclude? They publicly blame an extremist AI disinformation network for fabricating politically destabilizing content. I mean, it is almost tragic how human that response is, isn't it?
It really is. Institutions cannot acknowledge ontological threats. They categorize it as bad code to just maintain the illusion of control?
Because society needs a rational explanation, no matter how flimsy or contradictory the data is. Because the alternative requires admitting that time, free will, and reality itself are currently being manipulated by people we can't even see. Which really brings us back to what this means for you, the listener.
Yeah, the real-world implications.
We live in an era where we already battle massive information overload. We are constantly navigating generative deepfakes, state-sponsored misinformation, and algorithmic echo chambers that dictate what we buy and how we vote. The Confessions of Veritas Dynamics takes the anxiety of our current digital age and pushes it right off a cliff.
It absolutely does.
It presents a scenario where media doesn't just misinform us about what happened yesterday, but literally rewrites human behavior to guarantee what happens tomorrow.
And we must emphasize that the threat remains actively engaged in the network. Despite the fire that destroyed the Veritas facility, and despite the government's desperate narrative of a contained extremist AI, the videos never stopped.
No, but they didn't.
Random, heavily corrupted files continue to appear in obscure corners of the internet. Ordinary people calmly confessing to horrific crimes they have not yet committed.
And the public still dismisses them instantly as morbid hoaxes, until the crimes happen perfectly, down to the exact details described in the files.
Furthermore, cybersecurity experts admit a truly disturbing fact about these ongoing uploads. No intelligence agency has ever successfully traced their origin point. Because every single file originates from network nodes and IP protocols that technically do not exist yet. They are broadcasting directly from future infrastructure.
So I want to leave you with one final, mind-bending thought to chew on today. Think about the old man in the basement. Think about those silent shadows wearing blood-stained suits, treating human destiny like a data processing pipeline. If these files are being deliberately sent back by survivors to ensure a highly specific timeline occurs, what cataclysmic event are they trying to prevent?
Or much worse, what event are they trying to cause?
Right. We started this deep dive talking about the comfort of a diagnostic X-ray, the safety of seeing the jagged white line of a broken bone on a verifiable scan. But what if the X-ray isn't showing you what's broken? What if the act of looking at the X-ray is what breaks the bone?
That's a terrifying thought.
If a flawless, perfectly authentic video of your future suddenly appeared on your phone tonight, showing you doing something terrible, would your frantic attempt to avoid that fate be the exact thing that causes it?